Congratulations on Still Mine.
Thank you very much.
You know, I just before we turned on the microphones, I was telling you that I'm from the East Coast, and the tone of this movie, which is a story about a New Brunswick man who builds a retirement home and then runs into some government interference as his wife is suffering from Alzheimer's, really, really rung true to me. The pace of life, the steely determination of these quiet people. I just thought that it was bang on. So I'll start with you, Michael. You found the story that this was based on. You wrote the script and directed the film. Tell me a little bit about putting all this together and really grabbing that tone.
Well, I mean, when you read this story, and if you were a documentary filmmaker and you were living down the road from Craig Morris, and you think, wow, my 88-year-old neighbor is going to start to build a house, including felling the trees, milling the lumber, and all that. And then the fact that the building department was relatively insane in just the opposition to the dignity with which he was doing it. And then you add in that he was doing it for love. To me, all those things really contributed to the tone and made it relatively easy, as you know, as a screenwriter, always looking for ideas. When you find sort of this story that's so much given to you, it makes it easier. And then the tone, meeting the real Craig Morrison, seeing, you know, his lawyer Gary Fulton said he's a little bit like Jim Stewart. I mean Stewart. What's the actor's name?
James Stewart.
James Stewart. Yes, I was thinking Jamie because Jamie. Jamie Cromwell. Which one is it? James Stewart. He has that sort of gentleness to it. So there was so much of it was given to me already.
Right. Now, Jamie, tell me a little bit about how you ended up in this story. I have a feeling that the small guy, the Davy and Goliath version of this story may have appealed to you a little bit because you have a history of being involved in very progressive kind of causes. And I wonder if that's the thing where you went, oh, the script appeals to that side of my nature.
Gosh, I wish I were that intelligent. No, you know, there's the pace of life in L.A. is quite a bit different than it is in New Brunswick. I get easily distracted, especially when I'm not working, so I tend to be sort of at 6s and 7s. I got the script is submitted to my agent. They're sending it over. You find the time to read it. You read it quickly. You get sort of a vague idea. You call up the director who wants to talk to you. You say some stupid things off the top of your head. He goes, ha. And then you fly off to something else, and you finally get this draft, and you're going through the second draft, and you're saying, Jesus, it's not as good as it was. Oh, those are all my suggestions. And so we had a long conversation, which was the beginning of our collaboration, which was what was that actually, it was Michael. Because I managed, through a lot of volume and a lot of words, Michael had his own ideas. He was going to do what he wanted, but I felt that I was convincing him to go back to what I originally got.
Right.
The reasons why I chose, I don't think you actually choose anything. I think things choose you. And if you're not resistant and you're willing to go with it, usually life gives you what you need at that moment. I needed to do this film. It's already been very important in my life. And after the fact, I realized, the relationship reminds me a lot of my father and mother, who were those kind of people and went through much the same thing with the similar dignity and a passion and for what they did and a love of each other. And the politic, as I now realize, does mirror really the way that I react to the world that we live in and what we have created, which I no longer believe suits us. It's like an old technology that has to be replaced. People have to have a new way of thinking to get back to what originally was the way we used to relate to each other, which was much more humane, considerate, compassionate, empathetic. And so I talk a good game now, but then it was just blind luck, I tell you.
Well, it's interesting because we'll get back to the nuts and bolts of the film in just a sec, but when I watched this movie, in the review that I wrote afterwards, I said, it's a really lovely portrait of a town where people actually care about one another. small towns. I grew up in one. People know one another's business, and it's not just about knowing one another's business. It's about helping them out. And there's a couple of moments in the film where you see people quietly helping out, and there's a story about Craig Morrison, your character, who in 1973 helped his neighbors with gas and lumber or something when their farm wasn't going to make it. Yeah. And it's a moment, it's a quick moment in the film, but again, it rung really true. All those details really struck me. And I'll tell you that, there was a time not that long ago, and I would imagine even growing up in Los Angeles, and for Michael, you growing up in northern Ontario.
No, I grew up in Toronto.
Oh, you grew up in Toronto?
Yeah. But I live in a small, live in the country now.
But you live in the country. But there was a time when every one of us knew a farmer, probably, knew where your food was coming from. And those days are gone now. I mean, and it wasn't that long ago, I don't think, that was the norm.
No, I mean, my cousins are all farmers, and they were my heroes growing up. I mean, I grew up in the city, and to go to my cousin's place and live in that world where they knew how to fix the truck and build the house. And, when we shot where we shot as well, people know how to do this stuff. That, Craig Morrison, he showed me the sawmill, and it's the coolest thing ever because it's this homemade thing that's run by an old diesel tractor. And these guys put this thing together, and that's a way of life that's vanishing, that you can do so many different things and live a fulfilling life doing that.
Jimmy, you grew up far away from us. You grew up in Los Angeles. Your parents...
Well, only till I was 6, then actually on the East Coast, certainly not in a place that were any farmers.
Right.
No, my experience was very much different than, people on the coasts in the United States tend to think of themselves as the center of the earth. No one does it quite as well as New York. That's number one. And then the West Coast is where everything happens supposedly. And you get an idea about who lives in the middle of the country, which is really fallacious. And when I went there recently to Oklahoma to make a film, what surprised me was exactly the same thing. The interconnectedness of the people who live there, their reliance on each other, their genuine affection for each other, all the beautiful qualities that when you live in a really large city, especially Los Angeles, driving around in an automobile, you never experience.
Mm-hmm. Now, Craig Morrison's name has come up a number of times. It's the character that you play, Jamie, in the film. Tell me about your personal experiences. Michael, you, it seems like, spent some time with him. Jamie, did you meet him?
I met him at the end.
At the end.
Yeah.
So did you feel a responsibility towards him to get all the details exactly right, or was it more important what was on the page in front of you?
It's always what's important on the page. Yeah. If I had started the process the way Michael started the process and I knew the person, then maybe I would look into all the details, but Michael did all that work, so he pared it down to what he needed. So what you have to do is fill what's needed. I know a lot of actors do a lot of background and research, and how the person thinks and what they wear and did. For instance, Genevieve wears a pearls, which is really her choice to do. And somebody said, "Did you have anything?" No, I didn't. I had the clothes that I picked out, and we picked them out in about an hour. In one day, Michael and I, and that's
we went shopping.
Yeah, we went shopping.
Really?
Yeah. We went to Mark's Work Warehouse.
Yeah, and that's basically, he's a guy just, he knows his tools and he knows his house. The really sweet moment at the end when he leaves that house, of which he no longer works for him, and as he walks out to the door, he sees penciled in the heights of his children as they grew. That's the moment that you feel. I did that with my children. Right. We all did, so we know that. And that's the moment you have to get right. Regardless of whether he's left-handed or right-handed, it doesn't really matter to me.
And for you?
Well, yeah. I mean, I went out and met Craig Morrison, and I mean, if somebody said, well, how can you write as an older person? And it's easy when you meet the man, you see him, and he shows you the baseball that was signed by Babe Ruth and Lou Gehrig, and he takes you around in his truck at 91 years old and says, well, this is another house that I built, and this is a quarry that I mined, get the gravel from for the grader and all that kind of stuff. So it was important for me to get Craig's story right in spirit. And I told him, I mean, it's based on a true story. I didn't make it a true story. But having said that, when you finish the film and you realize, oh, the family's going to see this thing, wonder what the reaction is going to be. And they were really incredibly generous. Like, it was because there's stuff in there that they just might not like, or and you know, and Craig loved the film, the family loved the film, and that was really important to me, even though I made the film I wanted to make.
And it's interesting to me because not only is it a film about government interference, not only is it a film about aging, but I loved a speech near the end of the movie where there's a large table that Craig Morrison has made, and he talks about how when he first made it, he spent ages making it, and the kids would do their homework on the table, and their pen would leave a mark on the table, and it used to infuriate him. And then he realizes that the scars and the imperfections are where the memories are, where the beauty of that comes from. And I thought that's what this movie is about. Sure. It's not about all that other stuff.
That's Michael's table.
Is it?
Yes, I worked as a carpenter, and I built the pine table in my house, and so. And it does, you sort of take what, you put yourself into Craig Morrison, I mean, as a writer. And that was just, as a writer, that's sort of a bit of a gift because it all turns on the phrase, pine holds a lot of memories. Yeah. And of course, Irene can't hold the memories at that point. So, that's the joy of writing and then watching Jamie and Genevieve bring it to life and, the whole production of it and stuff like that. That's the fun part about filmmaking.
Yeah.
Also, interesting, he says, I think his wife says to him, you were very table proud. Mm-hmm. So you put a lot of work into this, and somebody drops a skate on it or writes on it or nicks it in some way. And our original reaction is to resist. But that's sort of the way, the picture of him standing on the beach with those stones,
right,
all worn smooth. Life has a way of, it wears you smooth, but it leaves the imprint of and you realize it just relax and it's okay. It comes to, it all, I don't want to use the word pays, it all counts.
Right. Everything
counts and reverberates and enriches when you're doing it the right way, which I think he was.
Is this, this sounds like maybe it could, from what I've read anyway, could be part of your personal philosophy as well. Is that true?
I think it is.
Yeah. When did you become someone who because we were, again, talking before the microphones were on, the ubiquitous James Cromwell. I see you everywhere. I saw you Boardwalk Empire. There was a Babe rerun on the other day. I grew up with Stretch Cunningham. I mean, it's just, and more. And like, I mean, you're not hard to find these days. And but when did you sort of make a shift into more personal causes in your off time when you're not standing in front of a camera?
After Babe, PETA approached me, People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals, because I had this film about a pig to do some work with pigs, the 4-H pigs, where elementary school children raise pigs, right, and keep them for the year and name them and get to know them and appreciate their intelligence and their sense of humor. And then when they leave school, come back the next year, that pig is gone. That pig's been slaughtered, right, which is devastating to a lot of them. And then it increased. Actually, I hired a publicist because a sound engineer said to me when I was looping another project, he said to me about Babe, that's an Academy Award performance. I said, come on, man. I got 17 lines. What are you talking about? He said, believe me, it's an Academy Award performance. So I thought, well, this will probably be my only shot. I hired a publicist. And one of the things the publicist said to me was, what are your causes? What do you want to? Right. Well, I never had celebrity to spend up until then, which is what you have to do with celebrity. Otherwise, it eats your soul. So, but when people stick microphones in your face, it's really nice to have something worthwhile to say besides, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, I feel this way, I feel that way. So I got involved with the Lakota Indians on the Pine Ridge Reservation with death penalty focus. When I came up in the theater, I was very political. I was involved in the anti-war movement, Black Panthers. I went down south during Freedom Summer. But I had left that behind when I had my family. It didn't seem to be available to me. Right. What celebrity does is give you the opportunity to see if you can make a difference. And That's what I've been trying to do.
Right. You were involved in the committee to defend the Panthers.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that must have, I mean, I can't imagine those times and how it must have felt, did it feel dangerous? It must have felt
it was
not comfortable.
I said, I was giving a speech at Yale, and I sort of went through my career, and I realized that 11 people nationally were assassinated in the 9 years I was in the theater. President Kennedy, his brother, Malcolm X, Martin Luther King, Medgar Evers, Bobby Hutton, Fred Hampton, the little girls in the Birmingham church, Mickey Schwerner, who I played football with in high school, was in Mississippi. When I was in Mississippi, they were missing. We knew they were missing, but we didn't know they had been killed, Schwerner, Cheney, and Goodman, and they're being killed, and the FBI responding is probably the reason that they didn't try to kill us, because they would have killed us. But it was sort of a learning process. I was just a theater actor. I was this white bourgeois kid, from the North, and I had no idea what was going on. But you learn. Luckily, my ignorance probably protected me. The Panthers, of course, made sure that you got political education, so you knew sort of what you were doing. You could never answer the questions, why is America a paper tiger, the way they answered it, because they lived it on the street. But you did learn. I remember at the end of that experience, the Panther 13 had been sent to jail, been set up by a federal organization called COINTELPRO, and they were to be sent to jail, and then they would be killed in jail by another Khan, and that would get rid of the Panther leadership. Well, there was an event. The Minister of Information came from the West Coast to try to resolve the conflict between Eldridge and Bobby Seale. He was arrested, and as he was being arrested, he handed the .45 automatic that he carried for his own safety to a friend of mine whose father was the lead violinist in the New York Philharmonic. When the prosecutor stood before the judge, which I went down to see, he said, "We're arresting Mr. Williams on a violation of the Sullivan Act, which is carrying a firearm across state lines." William Kunstler, very famous lawyer who was defending him, got up yelling, "You're lying, you're lying." And I'm sitting there. It never occurred to me in everything that I had learned growing up that people lied in court, which is something that black people understood. They understood the lies begin from the moment they're born, but that the police lie, the prosecutors lie, judges don't judge fairly, juries are manipulated. And this is a revelation to me. So, and then I let it go, and I've come back to it. I'm getting more riled up about the pipeline, I must say.
Well, you sort of put your money where your mouth is there with the criminal record now, right?
I got a criminal record. I've got a file.
How did you, Michael, tell me a little bit about how you met?
Well, we met on the phone, first of all, and it was sort of established our working relationship. I mean, Jamie read the script and wanted to do it, and then he's really prepared. Like, he's not an actor that's going to we're not going to find it on the floor. It's not sort of like, oh, let's just try this. And that's the way I like working as well. And he's an actor that also challenges a director. And I say that only with the highest praise, because he really was a collaborator. There's so much in the film that I look at that, whether it was a blocking or a line change or just a decision, that he had my back and I had his back. And what I mean by that is, if he has an idea, it's an idea. It's a suggestion, it's a discussion point. He doesn't have to be right, and I don't have to be right. And we're not. It wasn't. Some actors will come to you and say, "I was thinking," and you know that if you don't end up thinking the same way they do. It's a net loss for somebody.
Right.
With Jamie, it was always just a discussion and a collaboration, which was fantastic.
There's a stillness to your performance here that I thought was really interesting to watch, because I think it must feel, and I'm not an actor, so you tell me, but it must feel kind of counterintuitive when you're being filmed and you're doing a performance to not do anything, to allow the camera to sort of luxuriate on your face and read what's going on behind your eyes rather than putting some physicality into it. And I loved it. Is that do you agree with that, first of all?
I do.
And is that something that you learned over time? Do you think that your performances have changed a great deal from the Stretch Cunningham days, which I think was your first television work,
Yeah, it was, yeah.
and on the way through to Still Mine?
Without a doubt. I'm a spare actor. A lot of people use a lot of facial expressions. Some people use their bodies wonderfully. Stillness seems to be my strong suit. I remember when we started Babe, another wonderful director, Chris Noonan, I was working on the gate trying to fix it, and he said, do less, work less. And so I took it to heart and got very still in that performance because I was supporting. I wasn't mine. The difficulty with this was, so now I'm the lead in a picture, and what is my responsibility to try to sustain the story? How much do I have to effort? And you learn, and I will do better the next time, hopefully, that you let other people do the work for you. It's like when you play the king. You can't actually play a king with any attribute that is kingly. What makes you a king is how other people behave towards you. Their deference, their fear, their respect, that's what creates in the mind of the audience the king.
That's interesting. So often, it's interesting to me that given your past interest in progressive causes, you often play authority figures on screen.
Yeah, well, I started out as a pig farmer, and then the next thing was a very corrupt and violent cop. And so Hollywood couldn't figure out what to do with me, so they sort of put me in the middle as the President of the United States.
You've mentioned Babe a couple of times. I have to tell you, it's 17 lines. I didn't know.
Amazing, isn't it?
I didn't know 17 lines. So were you one of those actors when you got the script, do you take the yellow marker and go through and, hey, wait a minute.
I don't even use the yellow marker, man. I just flipped through the pages, and I said, I can't. This is stupid. This is going to be a film they put peanut butter in the animals' mouths.
Yeah.
It's a kid's story. But my dear friend Charles Keating said to me, hey, listen, it's a free trip to Australia, and if the movie fails, it's the pig's fault, it's not your fault. So what do you got to lose? So I did it.
Well, it's so, because you never know what's going to hit. You never know what's going to grab people, and that'll do, pig. I mean, people must say that to you.
A lot of people are very touched by that moment. I was touched by that moment.
Yeah.
And no, you can't tell. You don't know what kind of this is a film about two elderly people, and the question for us is, we with hope it would attract a younger audience. Right. I think there's something for them to learn and to feel and to experience by watching people who have lived that kind of life, the life you described, a life of dignity, a life of purpose, a life of relationship, courage, that courage that it takes to be a farmer every year, not knowing if you're going to make it the next year.
And so dependent on if there's an early frost or if there's just things you absolutely can't control no matter what you do.
That's correct. Which is really actually the illusion of security is something that is created by a civilization which has no idea, because there is no security, as we are now learning. And what you have to do then is accept what life gives you. You have to embrace it. And if we did that, it would probably be a better world. So and I hope the kids look at it and say, yeah, wow, they're amazing. Wow, look at that relationship. That works.
Well, the line near the end of the film, and this doesn't give anything away, but you say, Craig Morrison says, well, in 61 years, we've only spent a handful of nights apart. And then you see him trying to sleep without his wife of 6 decades by his side. Yeah. And it's a really, really lovely moment.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Me too.
How, as a young man writing this, where do you find it?
You find it in lots of ways. You find it from your parents. You find it from your own relationships, and you don't. I mean, I think the trick is not to make a grumpy old man. If you caricature anybody, it's not going to work in a film that's made up of a lot of small moments that sort of, reveal a larger truth, hopefully. And so, to me, it's easy. Whether it's writing a 14-year-old kid trying to win the Boston Marathon or an 88-year-old trying to save his life in a lot of ways, it's just you get a voice, and that's the voice you go with. But it's not. The mistake is always trying to be like a caricature, and just try to stay away from that.
Now, the film is already a success in the sense that it opened yesterday in theaters, but you've already won a Canadian Screen Award. In fact, I would think that in the history of the Canadian Screen Awards, you will go down as the first person to step on that stage as an award winner.
Yeah, that's pretty neat. As an honorary Canadian.
As an honorary
I'm very
Canadian.
pleased.
Will you come and make more films with us?
Oh, without a doubt.
Yeah.
Just ask me.
Michael, thank you so much. Jamie, a real pleasure to speak to you both.
Oh, thank you very
Thanks
much.
for
That's
coming
great.
in.
Thanks. Perfect. Thank
That's
you.
a show, yeah, and
Obviously, very nice.
We'll tart it up with